I have seen enough. It is officially time to shut down both Joel Embiid and Paul George for the season. There is no need for them to continue to play through their injuries. And on today's show, Joel Embiid spoke out again regarding his bothersome knee issues, and it is a cause for concern long term. And Paul George confirming some reports about his finger issue that is also rather concerning. So let's just dive right into it, starting with what Joel Embiid had to say following Thursday's loss to the Boston Celtics in the Sixers' first game after the All-Star break. Joel Embiid said, "When I was playing a year ago, it is not the way I'm playing right now. It sucks, but I believe I probably need to fix the problem, and then I can be back at that level. But it's hard to have trust when you are not yourself. And I mean, I'm not as dominant as I was even a couple months ago. But that doesn't mean I still can't have a lot of impact on the game." Look, this is now the second time in just the past week or two that Joel Embiid has come out publicly stating he thinks he needs time off and another surgery on that knee to fix those issues. Second time in just a couple of weeks, and it's clear that he is not the same player that he was, as he said, even at the beginning of the season. If Joel Embiid is not his usual dominant self, there's just no way for the Sixers team to consistently win games. And look, even with a week off, with the All-Star break, him not having to play any basketball for a week, things didn't get any better. He even said that himself, like, I felt a little bit better, but it doesn't change anything with the way he's been playing because he needs the surgery on the knee, or else it's just never going to get better. So I don't get why the Sixers, hearing Embiid say this, don't just do the surgery now, get it over with, given where they're at in the season. And now, with this being the second time Embiid has publicly to the media stated that he thinks he needs surgery, could he be sending a message to this Sixers organization saying, look, I get it. You guys believe in the squad, and I can appreciate you having belief in me and the team, but I need this surgery. And maybe they're putting that off, but Joel Embiid's the one who thinks he needs it, obviously, and thinks he should get it done now. So could he be sending a message to Daryl Morey, to this medical staff and this organization saying, just let me have the surgery now because I'm not going to be able to get back to the player that I once was until we figure this thing out and get that knee fixed. And then Paul George as well, after that loss to the Celtics, was also asked about that finger injury on his hand that he has been dealing with, and this is what he had to say. Look, I'm hanging in there. I'm giving this team everything I have right now. The report is true. You know, I'm taking some sort of medicines to kind of play through the pain, but yeah, I'm going to keep trying to give it everything I got. Now, in case you missed it, you don't know what the report that Paul George is referencing is. Last week, Shams Charania reported that Paul George has been receiving pain-killing injections in that finger just to be able to get out there and play, which now this is the first time that Paul George is confirming that that is the case. And this is one of those things, Shams said in that initial report, these type of injections to make the player play through the pain are usually things that are reserved for the postseason when you need a guy out there and he can get through it and you want him out there to win games. We're in February right now, and he was getting those injections in the games before the All-Star break. Why are the Sixers forcing Paul George to play injured, giving him these injections in the middle of February? It just doesn't make any sense. But it comes down to this. The Sixers are not willing to mail it in. They're not willing to give up on a year in which they're currently 15 games under 500. That is unbelievable to say. If I would have told you that at the beginning of the year, that come after the All-Star break, the Sixers would be 15 games under 500, I wouldn't have believed it myself that this is where they're at right now. But even still, the Sixers do not want to mail it in. Nick Nurse also spoke after that loss to Boston at home and said this: I keep saying we've got to get in to the playoffs, of course. Every game's going to have some importance. It's probably just a little bit more important with the teams that are around us, just in case there's some tiebreakers involved there. I think we're up for it. And look, I get coach, GM, they're not going to come out and say, yeah, the season's probably lost, so we're just going to play it easy from here on out. But none of their actions either have said that they're willing to do that. But they have to ask themselves as an organization right now, because this is the turning point. This is really it. You're 15 games under. Again, you're only a game and a half out of the play-in right now because the Chicago Bulls also continue to lose games. But is this even worth it? Is it worth it to push these players, two of your star players in Joel Embiid and Paul George, make them play through pain in order to make a potential playoff run? Because what if you keep pushing Joel Embiid and you do not let him get the surgery yet, and the knee gets even worse, and then all of a sudden it becomes an issue even more long-term that he now has to deal with going into next season? What if it impacts his availability for next year? And same thing with Paul George. You keep giving him these injections to play through the pain rather than finding a more permanent solution to fix his finger injury. What if by giving him these injections now, you're not really fixing the issue, it doesn't heal correctly, and this is also something that he has to deal with in the offseason. He doesn't get a full offseason to try to get back to the former all-star version of Paul George that we've seen in previous years, and then that impacts his potential availability for the start of next season. Now, sure, it is mathematically possible for the Sixers to make the playoffs, as I mentioned, right there still in that Eastern Conference play-in race, but even if they do get into the play-in, and they win a couple play-in games, and they get that 8 seed, how likely is it really that this team can make a deep playoff run? Even when they've had their big three out there on the floor this year, they haven't been a very good team. I believe they're now 8-10 in games that Joel Embiid does play. That's not the record and the performance of a team that you'd expect to win multiple playoff series, especially getting the 8 seed. You'd have to go up against a number 1 seed Cleveland Cavaliers or maybe a Boston Celtics team if they go up and get that 1 seed, who just destroyed you at home in the first game after the All-Star break. So is it really worth it? And do you truly believe, being realistic about the situation, that if you make the playoffs, you can get in? I know we've seen, for example, the Miami Heat in previous seasons, led by Jimmy Butler, go from the play-in to the NBA Finals and make these deep runs. But that was a team led by, again, a guy in Jimmy Butler who was a star player and a tough player, and they had a good team. We haven't seen that type of play yet this season from this Sixers team. So what say you? Regarding Joel Embiid and Paul George, is it time? Should the Sixers shut them both down, get Embiid the surgery, let Paul George figure out that injury he's been dealing with, and just punt on the season, look forward toward next year? If you think they should shut these guys down, give me a Y for yes. If you disagree, if you still want the Sixers to make a run towards the playoffs, give me an N for no. Now, coming up next, related to this topic about Embiid, Paul George, and these injuries, we got to have a conversation about the Sixers medical staff. Because not just this year, but feels like for years and years and years now, the Sixers have been dealing with injuries to their best players and things that just don't seem to happen with other teams. So we got to have a serious conversation about this medical staff and what they're doing over there, because whatever they're doing, it's not working, and they're not doing their jobs to the best of their ability by getting these players ready and available to play in each and every single game. But before we get to that, Eagles Super Bowl gear still available through our friends at Fanatics, chatsports.com/EaglesSB. They got sick hoodies, t-shirts, throwback gear, a really fresh hat that I actually have myself. You can see right here. That thing is clean. A couple of us here, guys at Chat Sports, have already bought this hat. Again, shirts, memorabilia, all different types of things to celebrate this Eagles Super Bowl win. At least you got one good team to cheer for here in Philadelphia. And the Phillies season coming up soon as well. Hopefully some more things to take our minds off the 76ers. That link, chatsports.com/EaglesSB, will be in the comment section as well as the description of this video. So do not wait any longer. Go get yourself some Eagles Super Bowl gear now. So going back to this medical staff. Obviously, we've talked about Joel Embiid and Paul George. It's not just those injuries. Obviously, Embiid and the whole situation coming into this season with his injury, they said they had a plan to manage it. He wouldn't play back-to-backs, and they thought he would be okay. That obviously has not turned out how they thought. And Paul George has just not really been able to be on the court fully healthy pretty much at all this year either. So those are obviously a part of those concerns that we have with the medical staff. But it's not just those two. It's even other guys on this squad that throughout the year have been dealing with things that the Sixers just cannot seem to manage correctly. Starting off here, this might be the weirdest situation of these players we're going to talk about. Eric Gordon. He suffered a wrist sprain a couple games before the NBA All-Star break, missed the final 2 games before the break, and now sitting here Friday, February 21st, after the All-Star break, he's still dealing with this wrist sprain, and the Sixers, similar to Joel Embiid, have no idea what is going on. Here's what Nick Nurse had to say when asked about Eric Gordon's injury. He has seen 2 specialists, and they still don't know what to do. There's a problem with it. They're trying to decide the right course of action with it to get it better, but we're just unclear on that right now. So we probably got to see 1 or 2 more people, get more opinions before we can get to some proper steps and a plan of action. It's very concerning because I think there is a scenario that could hold him out for a very long time. Why do the Sixers always do this? This is exactly what happened with Embiid coming into the year, where they said, we don't really know what the issue is. And they met with a dozen specialists. Why can't they ever seem to figure these things out? It's a wrist sprain. You're telling me you already met with 2 specialists and your medical staff internally cannot figure out how to get this injury healed in a timely manner? This doesn't happen with other teams. When do you ever hear about this happening with other guys? And this is another player now in the same season, 2 guys that have suffered injuries that you simply don't know what to do with. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know what this medical staff is doing, man. This is what they get paid to do. This is their job, to figure out what's wrong with these guys and work to get the best plan to get them back on the floor, and they just seem unable and incapable to figure these types of things out. But it doesn't just stop there with Eric Gordon. Kyle Lowry, and I get it, Kyle Lowry's a veteran, same with Eric Gordon. He's older, he's been around the league for a very long time. He's going to deal with injuries here and there, but he's had a hip injury all season long. He's been in and out of the lineup, and just to be clear, I wouldn't really want Kyle Lowry on the floor anyways, but he's never been able to shake this hip injury. Again, why have you not been able to figure out some type of plan to be able to get Kyle Lowry at the very least healthy to be able to play if he needs to play? Because sometimes the Sixers team is so banged up, we're seeing like Jeff Doughton out there on the floor. Kyle Lowry can't even get out there because his hip injury continues to bother him all season. And then another weird one, Andre Drummond. He suffered a toe injury on December 23rd. And it's almost 2 months later now, coming up on February 23rd, and it's still bothering him. Now, he does play games here and there. He's been playing through it, but he has not been good when he's been on the floor. Clearly, that toe is still bothering him. Again, another example where you have not been able to figure out a way, letting him sit out games, which he has done, some type of plan to fix the issue and get Drummond healthy. Look, at some point, you just got to figure it out. Because as the medical staff, like, this is your job, right? And that's just this season. That's just what we've seen from the players on this year's roster. You could go back years and years and years where this Sixers team has just always seemed to have these weird injuries that they never were able to figure out. I mean, going back to, the Ben Simmons stuff, right? Obviously, that's an interesting situation. Jahlil Okafor, exactly. Nerlens Noel at the beginning of his career had injuries. Joel Embiid missed the first couple of years of his career due to injuries. There's just always something going on. Yeah, the Markelle Fultz thing. Like, it's just unbelievable that these players are always dealing with injuries that you cannot seem to explain. The Kelly Oubre thing, right? Him maybe getting hit by a car. We have no idea. And then even Kelly Oubre in the offseason was like, yeah, I have this wrist thing I've been trying to deal with. It just seems like they never have a good plan and a set plan to get players healthy. So they need to figure it out, especially when the top couple players on your team in Joel Embiid and Paul George have been dealing with injuries pretty much their whole careers. It just doesn't make sense to me that the people that you pay that are employed to get guys healthy and figure out what's wrong with guys injury-wise are not able to do their jobs. And seemingly nobody on the 76ers this year has really been able to do their job at a high level. Be sure to hit that sub button, subscribe to the channel. Videos almost every single day at this point on the 76ers, despite their struggles. It's going to be a very interesting offseason, regardless of whether they make the playoffs or not. You're going to want to keep it locked right here on 76ers Now.